We are live. Welcome to another episode of Politics with Peyman and JP, the show where we try to make sense of a very mad world. Today, we will be discussing the propaganda ramp up for the hantavirus. They want us all very afraid of this for some reason. And we'll be speaking about the escalations in Ukraine and with the Iranian conflict too. So how you doing, Peyman?
I'm doing pretty good. Still alive.
Holding it together.
Hanging by a thread.
So what are your initial thoughts? We'll jump right into it. What are your initial thoughts regarding this hantavirus? For me, it sounds like a whole lot of just fear propaganda. I don't think there's any, it's not airborne. So
I think they're testing the waters. Just looking at the algorithm, what content it recommends to me, a lot of people, they're trying to push it with humor right now. So I saw a meme of Ratatouille and they're like, this is how the hantavirus started. But I remember they did this during COVID. At the beginning of COVID, everybody was mocking the Chinese people coming in through the airports with like masks on and visors, and look at these backwards people. And they used that as a springboard to sort of unleash the tyranny. So I don't think it's going to work this time, but I'm not taking any chances.
Well, I'm hoping it doesn't work like for a large percentage of the population, but there's going to be those diehards that are just, they're tragically susceptible to this propaganda and they're just mainlining this mainstream narrative. So I think there will be some people that will fall for it hook, line, and sinker, unfortunately.
Yeah, my barometer for the low resolution voters that you often refer to, the early adopters, it's my parents. I have not heard them talk to me about this virus. So that means that they're also, they don't care.
So they were like did they totally agree with the COVID measures and everything? They were believing all the official narratives?
They were, but to be fair, for the first like 2 to 4 weeks, so was I. And there was an incentive on my part during COVID that I actually supported COVID, the lockdowns at the beginning, because I hate people and I hate people talking to me. So the more people had to stay home, it was amazing. The streets were empty. I was going for my jogs. There was nobody on the seawall.
That's the recurring joke for introverts. It was a great time. They're all hoping that this involves another lockdown.
Well, it was amazing. Like I used to play video games during the day. I'd go for a run at like 3 a.m.
Everyone else is suffering. You're in paradise.
I just running in the middle of the road. There's no cars.
So it's a good time for me to let everyone know I actually have an apartment inspection today. Hopefully it doesn't occur during this broadcast, but if it does, I'm going to drop off and deal with that. And Peyman will hopefully take some questions potentially. It won't be long, but that's the scenario in Nova Scotia, and I'm sure it's very similar in other provinces. Like, I have a decent job. I'm a working class man. I'm a laborer. My wife is a receptionist. We actually have a roommate, and rents are so exorbitant that even with that, like we're forced to rent. There's no entering the housing market for people like us anymore. That's just an absolute pipe dream. It's an impossibility. So there's this necessity for rentals. And then when you're renting, you're spending, like I said, this just ridiculous amount on this. For me, I'm in a very working class area. It's not a nice building. And I'm paying out the ass for it. And then they come in, they reserve a right to come in and inspect my premises twice a year. So it's so invasive. And when I say this, a lot of people don't understand it. It's like, it's normalized. Like, private property in and of itself is under attack, but especially owning your own land or home, they're really putting that to an end. And then, like, you got to realize what you're losing. You're losing all autonomy and agency. Like, I don't own this place as much as I'm paying for it. And they can make any reason and come in and enter. They walk through my rooms with a clipboard and like 2 big dudes. Like, it's so invasive. I find it's analogous to having your cell tossed if you were in penitentiary.
Let's take it from the top. Who's your landlord? Is it an individual or is it like BlackRock?
It's a big company. I don't know who owns the big company, but it's surely there's an individual on the top. But this is common. This is every apartment reserves that right. Now there's logic to it. Like, in a regular market, you're renting because you want to rent, not because it's an absolute necessity to avoid being homeless. There's a lot of people that do that. So, and then I could see like, well, I'm renting this to you. I need to inspect it once a year to ensure there's not major damage or something that's, out of whack. So I can grasp the premise from someone who does own it, and is renting it out. But like, there's a very unique circumstance in Canada right now where the economy has been decimated, and we're all literally forced to rent. So I mean, I don't know how you fix that. I don't know what the fix is. I could see the point on the landlord side, but for me, it's just I look at it for the people. Like we're losing agency every day, and it's being normalized because it's like I said, Payman. I know you understand my grievances, but when I express this, even to my family, I think they look at me like, "What's the big deal?" And that's what my friends are like too. It's just it frustrates.
You cut off there. You still with us?
I believe so. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can. So, one guest, a former CRA employee I interviewed, he used to live in Vancouver, the Lower Mainland, and he saw this tyranny. So he's moved way, way, way up north, this place called 100 Mile House. And in contrasting the Lower Mainland, and I keep hammering this home, the urban centers with the outskirts, he said in the outskirts, the countryside, people gain stuff through inheritance. Like people pass things down. Obviously, they pass down land, but they pass down like washing machines, vehicles, tractors, like actual physical products. And he contrasted this with the urban centers, where he goes, people acquire things through mortgages. So this rural urban divide, what you're falling into, your family wealth, generational wealth, has been replaced with big daddy government through the banks. And that's why your rents are going up.
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, when you look at a situation like mass migration, like you look just two metrics. We'll look at the unemployment rate in Canada, and then we look at the inflation in the housing and rental markets. Like just by those two metrics, it's like lunacy. There's not an adjective to adequately describe the level of insanity that is for the government to still be influxing people into this market, considering.
Tell me what you think about this. Immigration, the way it impacts the housing market is the gasoline that they're throwing on the dumpster fire, which I think is the fractional reserve fiat banking system. Like they print money and it causes inflation, and they're siphoning off your wealth. They're siphoning off your ability to own a home because they've printed money that's increased the value of that home. And as you mentioned, like you talk about this with your family, and they're like, this guy's crazy. What the hell is he talking about?
Well, I'm definitely a little eccentric, so I think people that know me and stuff, they just thought, well, you have, an anti-authoritarian type of a viewpoint or an anti-government. I'm not even anti-government. I think I'm very rational. That's what kind of blows my mind. I don't think it's me. I think it's all of them. But I think you're spot on. And this Ponzi scheme, because that's what it is, it's going to come to an end. Endless growth is not real. It can't happen. It's totally unsustainable. And I think we're at the end of the cycle. And now they either have to transition us to like digital slavery and like central bank digital currency, and they have to like impose all these sanctions and censorship, or they're going to lose it because it's just not going to function anymore as it was designed to.
Your story, for the audience, this isn't just a grievance on the part of JP. He's had a bad day. He hasn't had his coffee yet. It goes to the heart of what's going on in Canada. This is whatever we're doing, whatever system we're pursuing, it's just not working. If people can't own their own land, what is the purpose of this system? And I'm not saying 100% of the population has to at all times own land, but it has to be greater than, what are we at? Like what percentage owns their land outright in Canada? 5%, 10?
I wouldn't even say that much.
Yeah, like this isn't a winning strategy.
Just to warn everyone, I can hear them. They're close. I hear that hard authoritarian knock coming. I should just stay alive and engage them in a debate.
Sounds like Shawshank Redemption. You better be dead or dying in there.
That's what it's like, man. That's what it's like. It's the most invasive thing imaginable. My house, like I wasn't expecting them, so it was, untidy. I'm not a slob, but you're running around, you're trying to figure that out. I'm trying to wake my daughter up who worked the back shifts, like they're coming. It's like it's so invasive. It makes me feel like I'm in an institution of some kind.
You got like a trick bookshelf that opens up. You all hide behind the walls.
Honest to God, we're in the floorboards.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. That's all I had to say about that. I think what you're going through is part of a far bigger problem with I know it sounds larger than life when we say banking, but it's just that you're printing money and you're devaluing the currency.
Yeah, and these problems are we're seeing the effects of them. Like it's like we're towards the end of this. Like what's next? We can't inflate the in currency much more, or we'll be at like hyperinflation, or it'll be like, 1,000 Canadian dollars for a loaf of bread. I mean, that it's not even unreasonable of an assumption the way Carney's printing money, like it's and still bringing people in. Like it's just like we're being set up to fail. It's a managed decline. It has to be.
Hey, let's talk about Carney. He's really going hard all in on this EU thing at the same time that the EU and NATO are escalating with Russia. I wouldn't be surprised if he starts sending some of the Canadian men and women off to fight in that war.
That's the obvious conclusion of this rhetoric. I don't think people realize it. Most people aren't thinking at all right now. We talk about that theme frequently, but I think you're absolutely right. That's what they want. They want Can Zuck, and then they want us with the EU. Like it goes to show like a lot of people have always say I'll say like the Commonwealth leaders are traitors, and they'll be like, no, they're not. They're being loyal to what they pledged to be loyal to. That's where they taken their oath. They have no. They're not. They take no pledge to the people. It's not like in America. It's literally to the institutions. It's to the crown, and then the crown does what they think is best. But this they're desperate, right? That's where it all comes from. It stems from absolute desperation, and they're scrambling. Everyone thinks it's like the end game of a sophisticated plan. I think their plan had a wrench thrown in it. And now I just see these people scrambling and they're trying to maintain power.
Yeah, they're making huge mistakes as they're doing that. Um, I I don't know where Canada goes from here. You're mentioning that they're not loyal to their people. They're not, and then but you have another way you could look at it, the Bruce Party way. They're not being loyal to the people, but the people have no problem with it, so the people are okay voting in disloyal politicians. It's like an abusive relationship or like a battered wife syndrome where the wife just gives in.
Yeah, and it again, and this is why we come to this theme often. It's relative to the education level of the population. This system, as just utterly corrupt as it is, visibly corrupt at this point. It's all people know, and they don't have the imagination to think past it. They weren't taught anything. They're very distracted by a lot of modern distractions. But I mean, it's coming to the point now where I keep saying like, what's next? Like, what has to happen? And seemingly there is no catalyst that can wake up Canadians, and our apathy is the reason we're in this situation.
I guess I'm getting old. I'm reminiscing on my youth now when I was a child. And I always wanted to fit in with the Canadians. And you go to a Canadian family, it's all sunshine and roses, and they got pizza, McDonald's, and parents always talk about happy things. Back then, you would go to a family dinner, like an Iranian family dinner. They would always talk about politics, and I hate that. I'm like, I don't care about the revolution in Iran. It's in the rear view mirror. But having gone through what they went through, the Iranians were far more politically savvy, and they would say things like "never trust religious people." They were talking about Muslims. If a Muslim, they either have their hand in your pocket or a pistol to your back, kind of thing. They're all idealistic. They're ideologues. Canadians, no, they're just like infants, like you always say when it comes to politics.
Well, it's just like good times, man. When you have a few generations of very easy times, then it doesn't necessitate people learning about these things. And that's where we are. We're in the good times have made a lot of weak people. There's my inspection. Take it away,
All right,
Peyman.
all right. So little does JP know I don't actually have access to the chat, but fortunately, I am a savvy person. I can head over to the. I guess I'd have to go to his X account since nobody logs into my YouTube account. Great, I got to sign in. Yeah. So, what were the topics? We're supposed to be talking about Russia, China, there's some developments going on with Russia. The Eastern European countries are allowing NATO to launch drones from within their airspace. I mean, I'm sure they were pressured into it, but this is a serious escalation. It seems like NATO is it's on its way out. The European Union is panicking, and they seemingly don't worry about escalation. It doesn't help that Putin didn't draw a red line, and this is one of the criticisms with Putin, where when they started attacking inside Russia, when they started carrying out terrorism against their civilian trains, when they started taking out their strategic bombers, there was that terrorist attack at was it the Opera House or was it the mall? The mall recently, not the one 20 years ago. They never drew any red lines, and with every single act of terrorism from the West, specifically England, the UK, against Russia, it emboldened them, and they've been escalating and escalating. They've been hitting their refineries, and something's got to give. Putin is a dove. He's not one of the hardliners, and the hardliners are breathing down his neck. And I think he's got to eventually start using the Oreshnik. The problem is the moment he uses it on civilian populations, if he starts attacking the way America attacked and decimated Iraq in the Second Gulf War, then the West will use that against him. He's between a rock and a hard place. Everybody wants him to take a tough, hardline position like Iran did. Iran absolutely crushed it in the information war. But at the same time, Iran did exactly what Putin is doing. They never escalated. They retaliated, the tit for tat thing, but they never escalated. All right, rambling aside, let's see what we got. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to read the comments out, and I can't put them on the screen. Let me just make sure I'm still live, right? I'm just rambling into an empty screen. Clown World says, Peyman, you might want to get close. Oh, for the love of God, Clown World. I can't get any closer. Somebody else in the comments tell me if it's just Clown World or if it's really my fault, in which case I'll apologize. Peggy says, good morning, fellas. Sounds fine to me. Peggy, good morning. And I have a new favorite viewer. Peggy's on my side, Clown World. She's moved up. She's #1 now. Clown World, we can hear you, but your volume is much lower than JP. I swear to God, I've been saying this to JP as well, and JP tells me I'm crazy. I think he just likes the fact that his mic is louder than mine, and I don't know what to do with it. The gain is up at 100%. I don't have access to audio controls. The only thing I know is that in the settings, we've set it so it automatically normalizes the audio, and we don't have a producer, and I don't want to mess with it. Next thing I know, I'll be twice as loud as JP, and nobody wants to hear my shrill voice. JT, Johnny Tightlips says, yes, the system needs more money and more debt, and the best way to achieve that is by causing more chaos. Mark's Carnage, the chaos agent. Is this yesterday's? This is yesterday's. Yeah. All right. Not my finest moment. Well, it's not my fault. He pinned that one. All right. It's this one right down under here. Yeah, I think we'll have to clip that part out. Yeah, Clown World, I see that, Peyman. Those messages are from yesterday. It helps. I realize that now, Clown World, but it didn't help me then when I was in the other stream. Yeah, that's the only comment I have. So what was I talking about? Yeah, Putin, he's got to start using some Oreshniks on Ukraine, but and also I have to be mindful that these are people out there that will have to pay the price for this. So you don't want to cause harm to the civilian populations. Squirrel Nuts sounds good to me. Clown, turn up your volume. Yeah, it's Squirrel Nuts. This one was on me. It's my fault. This was yesterday's comments. Clown World says, I'm definitely telling JP about your performance. Oh, no, not a negative performance review. It's okay. You can tell him whatever you want. I have full control of the Stripe account. So, the dozens of dollars we've made, I can use that and hold that over his head. Yes, Clown World, that was from yesterday. I know. I made a fool of myself. Yeah, so Putin has to do something vis-a-vis Ukraine, but we're all seemingly hurtling towards a conflict in Europe, Eurasia, since Europe's economy is crumbling. But I mean, it seems like the U.S. doesn't want to have anything to do with that. They just want to strip mine their European vassals, sell into their markets, but they don't want to provide for their defense. All right, JP is back. Thank God, JP. I was failing bad. I went to read the comments. I don't have access to the comments, so I went to read it from your stream, and I accidentally read yesterday's comments.
Nice. It's just one of those days, man. It's one of those days. My inspection was okay, I guess. They didn't kick me out on the street, so I will be housed for another day. But I just want to touch on that a minute. I know this has been a massive disruption, but it's kind of the theme of the episode at this point. Like, they actually come through, and there's a little small hole. There was a hole in one of the closet doors. We were bringing a bed frame in. And we paid a massive damage deposit that I doubt we'll get back. But I mean, they're like, oh, well, what happened there? It's like, would you like to know what I had for breakfast, darling? Are we there yet? Like, would you like to know about yesterday's bowel movement? Like, it's so invasive. It's unbelievable, man. And we just tolerate it.
Yeah, I think this is in line with the theme of the fascism going on that we've been pointing out. Is public-private partnership. Those landlords can get away with it because they have a platoon of lawyers. They've streamlined everything. They probably have an airtight contract with you, and then contrast that with like private landlords. Just like a person that has one and rents it out. You get like one gangster. I had a gangster. He caused a massive flood, and we tried to get him out, and he was bringing prostitutes in all the time. We went, like, he destroyed that place, and the RTB doesn't let you do anything. I have a feeling the RTB is like the courts. They look at whoever your landlord is. They're like, oh, this is a big company. Let's not mess with them. Let's side with them. It's fascism.
And it's the best description, man. The public-private partnership is the historical architecture for a fascist society. That's why when everyone's up here talking about communism, I was guilty of it. Like, I used to use it frequently. Like, stop using that term. This is not communism. Communism is predicated on the proletariat seizing the means of production. This is not. We're seeing bankers transition our countries into corporations. If we have to put them in one of those categories, it's the fascist slot.
And another problem with these words, it's like Michael Scott said, they're just words. They don't mean anything. The definition of these words means something completely different to every single person. So you almost have to use the most like rudimentary, elementary words possible. People, home, jobs, power, like things that everyone kind of understands.
If I'm having a disagreement with somebody, like a debate or a discourse, I want them to define the terminology they're utilizing. Because, like, there's such a weaponization of like semantics. Like, for instance, I use this example just because everyone understands it. When people use the term diversity, they don't mean everybody's welcome. That's what diversity means in the language, like a variance, if we were to define it. But when they use it, we value diversity. What that means is absence of the perceived racial hegemon. So when they use it in Canada and America, they mean quite literally absence of white people. It's a bad word. So it's really crucial to debate these terms because they've been distorted beyond recognition at this point.
Man, when I'm having a disagreement with a leftist, I have to ask him to even define seemingly simple words like corporation. What they mean really is any incorporation, any private business, but they pass it off as if it's $1 billion corporation. So they vilify the billionaires, but they really go after like some guy with a landscaping company.
Yeah, it's like a false dichotomy, man. It's like I said, and they're fomenting this division and this hate. Like, people are resentful now. Like, working class people that don't have much, they look at someone who's middle class and they're resentful. And that's what foments a lot of these revolutions, is that it's that intense resentment between classes or between groups.
I'm reminded of a spoof show during the first Bush administration, like 2002, and they made a reference to President Evil 2, so like Resident Evil games, and he goes like President Evil 2, where a mindless zombie tries to wipe out the middle class. That's where it started, and that's what they've done. They've wiped out the middle class.
And the middle class really started to come into play with the post-World War II prosperity. And then it's like they realize, like, we can't sustain this for everyone. We have to eradicate the middle class. So by the late 60s, you started to see that. By the 70s, then definitely 80s, you started to see the deindustrialization. which is one of the biggest factors. That's what's happened to Western economies was deindustrialization.
That's a good theory. I mean, before World War II, you had more rural people, and
Mhm.
then they take the rural people and they put them into this Ponzi scheme that's called, I don't know, capitalism, the urban centers, and it was never meant to endure. So it got better for a little while, and now it's the end game here.
Seemingly, I mean, there's a lot of people that have a lot of disagreements about what's going on, various interpretations, but whatever the case may be, we're at the end of something. Something new is going to come out of this. Seemingly, we're at the end of some kind of a phase economically or the empire.
So in your absence, I was talking about Russia, but I was just running out the clock. You wanted to talk about China, I believe.
Yeah, well, they actually America has a important meeting with Chinese delegates. It's they're going to talk about is America going to be arming Taiwan and all of this stuff. It's just for me, I'm really I'm not looking forward. Poor choice of words. I'm very curious to see how these talks play out because America is in a compromised position right now, and the CCP are very well informed of it. And it's are they going to push a little more? I'm curious, like, are they going to put some feelers out for reunification? Because that's their end goal. And I don't see how the West can stop that at this point.
Yeah, I think the strategy, their goal was take out Iran, choke the energy supplies to China, and then when we have this meeting, we can make strong demands. From the American position, from my position, America suffered a military defeat, and it seems like they suffered a bit of a strategic defeat where now Iran controls the strait. Jason James, who I do an interview with, he pointed out that America has destroyed a lot of the Belt and Road Initiative infrastructure. So China wanted to be a land trade power, whereas America's a sea trade power. And if that's true, then America did gain some advantage. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
Yeah, there's a lot of moving parts to this for sure. But I don't know, man. And another thing I wanted to mention was Iran. Like this is escalating again. Trump is foaming at the mouth. He doesn't like their last demands. So now I see no way out of it, and I don't think it's Trump. We've got on this topic a lot. The people who are truly making the decisions behind this administration, they want this war. And once this really kicks off, I think then we can call it at this point. It's World War III.
So when Putin said that the president of the United States doesn't really have that much of an impact as other people making the decisions, this has been going on for a very long time, and I think it's actually before World War II. There was a situation where before this a certain presidency, every time a president came in, he would bring his own team and they would fire the old ones. And then they made the conscious decision, no, we can't have that. Like we need continuity of staff. So after that, they instituted this policy of the president can't just fire a staff. And that's what Trump is up against right now. But my point is, when they made that decision, it set in motion a series of steps, which have brought us to the point where the people aren't in control anymore because they can't elect a president to enforce the will of the people that way. So the entire system has been set up so that whatever this principle of taking out Iran is for the past like 45 years, it's baked into the American system.
Yeah, it's a systemic flaw for sure, and it's like I would use the term subvert it. Our democracies, if we ever really had democracies, they've been entirely subverted by an oligarchy. And this oligarchy is clandestine. It works to their advantage. This network, the supranational system that we all know exists above the Western governments, um, it's it's really there. They subverted our countries and they're in control. And that's like I often say this. It's an old saying, but censorship is what you see when the lie loses its power. We could see this thing now, and as clandestine as they are, and as much as they utilize this to their advantage, if their power is truly threatened, they will stop at nothing to eradicating that threat. They don't care if we see them because it's been fairly evident to people that are really paying attention for years now. Just evident too. And I'm not talking just conspiracy theorists. Like, you could see this thing. Look at the auto pen thing with Joe Biden. Joe Biden clearly wasn't making any decisions. He wasn't even dressing himself. So, I mean, there really is power beyond what we're led to believe.
The subversion of democracy, it's very real. And Mike Benz, he addressed it perfectly. I think it was on a Tucker Carlson interview. He goes, democracy, it went from the will of the people to, at some point somewhere in the past, democracy turned into the institutions that were birthed by democracy, and the purpose of democracy then became the promotion and promulgation of those institutions. And he singled out some of them. He said, like, the State Department, NATO, the EU, the UN. And when Trump came in and he tried to enforce the will of the people to scale back some of those, like get out of the World Health Organization, those institutions freaked out. And the people that we sometimes call the left, or incorrectly liberals, they were so brainwashed in all of this system that they came to the defense of this, and they called Trump a fascist, saying this is how Hitler came to power. He's trying to undermine these institutions. So you're right. And Mike Benz is more charismatic than you and I.
Not charismatic. He's definitely not as charismatic as me. He might be smarter than me, but I'll put that to the Pepsi challenge. Yeah, man, I agree entirely. And it's to a point now where it's masks off tyranny. Like, look at Canada. C2, C22, C8, C9, C11, C63. These are transformational legislation. And this legislation didn't come from Canada organically. There's no one calling for this. So, I mean, if you believe that this is a democracy or has democratic elements, I know it's a Westminster parliamentary system, but how do you explain that? And here's the biggest conundrum that will rock your framing and decimate it. Why are we seeing the exact same detrimental and unpopular legislation enacted all over the Western world? Like, that's the big one. There's an oligarchy. They control us. They've controlled us. The 20th century was a story of the oligarchy consolidating their control and influence over our institutions. 1913 is relevant, the establishment of the Federal Reserve. 1971, when they took us off a gold standard, very relevant. 1963, when they, I won't get into that angle, but when there was an assassination, like that, it's been a consolidation of their power. I truly believe, now this is all conjecture, clearly on my behalf, but I truly believe in between 2008 and 2012, they were really starting to get concerned about people starting to see the real game that's going on. Because we had, like, on the right, the so-called right in America, had a Tea Party movement that was very popular, and they were looking at the billionaire class and how it's not working as it's supposed to. At the exact same time, coalescing on the left, you had the Occupy Wall Street movement. So then it's funny that woke all of a sudden happens. No one knew what woke was. Like, you know what I mean? All of a sudden it's woke, and there's these very sensational culture war issues that are going to put people firmly in their ideological camps, because they want us to perpetually be looking and blaming each other, so we don't realize that we're all in perpetual debt slavery. And the rich people amongst us, they just have upgraded accommodations. They're still slaves too.
Yeah, I had one of these, like, epiphany moments the other day. I think it was you who mentioned to me that a lot of the hippie movement, all of these things, the CIA has been behind that. What was your reference point? Something you cited?
Well, I recently read Chaos, and it's about the 1960s, but they were saying, I can't think of the canyon, something canyon, but like Janis Joplin, Jimi Hendrix. Jimi Hendrix was an enlisted paratrooper in the military. Jim Morrison's dad was one of the major leaders in the Gulf of Tonkin incident. But a lot of people were saying that this was a subversion away from Christianity. They really wanted to move the West. And in the 60s, we've seen this with legislation too. We've seen the marriage laws very liberalized. You're starting to incentivize single mothers in poorer communities with welfare reform. Like, they were moving us away from the family. They were moving us away from Christianity. And they realized how powerful the tool of media was. Music, I think, like Elvis and all that stuff up to that era was totally legit. Even early Beatles was legit. And then I think in the mid 60s, mid to late 60s, they started to use their subversive tactics. Then you look at sorry, I got a little bit of a long ramble here, but you look at hip hop music. Look at the detrimental effect that hip hop music and gangster culture had on Black communities specifically, but even white communities. It's subverting us away from morality. And that's how I see it.
The epiphany I had is if the CIA was involved in things like the Weather Underground and the FBI had to come in and clean it up, and if the CIA has been involved in things like Antifa and the FBI has to come in and deal with that, you have a power structure that's causing problems. And this isn't just division and a little bit of strife. They're essentially funding terrorism, and then they're funding counterterrorism against that, and they're using our taxpayer money. Can you imagine if you're an FBI agent, you're like, why the hell did I do all of that? I was fighting for a country that was causing these problems.
Yeah, 100%. That's called specifically when you get into psychological tactics for color revolutions. That's called a strategy of tensions, where you fuel extremism on both sides to get us back in our ideological camps. This is the primary mechanism that they utilize to manipulate our behavior. And what I was thinking of earlier was the Laurel Canyon hippie movement. There was a few bands involved in that, and it started to spread. And that thing spread like a virus. Why? Because it's Dionysian. There's a Dionysian element to hippies and what they were doing. So you have to use a religion to subvert a religion. And there was a lot of morality underneath it, peace and love, no responsibility, no consequence. Let's dance the world into existence. And that was the 1960s. And I mean, I think it was an op. I truly do. And I know a lot of people can dismiss me. That's fine. I'm cool with that. But that's what's in my framing for what happened to the West.
Yeah, they've screwed us. We're at 37 minutes. I went over a little bit of the comments, but we can go over them if you want.
Yeah, we'll hit some comments up. We kind of got off topic, guys. I do apologize. This was all really happening. I get a phone call. They're coming for an inspection, so it really kind of made this even more informal than usual. So we'll get back on it now and hit some questions up. Clown World reposted the stream. Thank you very much. Much appreciated, loyal viewer. JP, I've never heard of inspections in an apartment before. They go through your entire place in every room. They do. And they'll ask you questions about different things they see. And there's always a very big man and then a woman with a clipboard. Last time there was 2 big men. So it's you can see what this is. You know what I mean? It's just like my cell is being tossed. That's how I feel.
It's strange. Usually property managers don't care because it's some like equity firm in Abu Dhabi who's got like $1 billion of property. They don't care if you damage it. That's like it's a drop in the bucket for the repair cost.
Yeah, and I mean, that's why you're paying a security deposit. Maybe I know that you could potentially do more damage than that would be covered by, but then I think there would be legal recourse. This is a massive imposition of privacy. This is my legal domicile. I can't have privacy. Like, they are allowed to toss my cell. It's outrageous. But moving on, we got Andre Maloche reposted the stream. Thank you very much, sir. And we got Squirrel Nuts, loyal viewer. Down with data centers. Enough is enough.
What was that in reference to? I agree.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
Andre was just on. Andre and I, we had a conversation yesterday, and I said they have to stop costing data centers in dollars, like $1 billion, and they need to start costing it in dead bodies. When you're using that much water, someone's dying somewhere. That much water and energy taken out of the grid.
Well, that's just it, right? There's a depopulation agenda. At the same time, they're building these massive data centers. Look at the neo-Malthusian framing that they've been inundating us with. Energy's bad, carbon's bad, degrowth is noble. That's the way. How does this work? This is incongruous with it. I mean, it's just shocking. So what do we got here? Another Squirrel Nuts. Monopoly of everything driving the small businesses out. That's for sure.
No, I agree with that. That was when earlier I said the single landlord thing is being pushed out. The landscaper, they make it impossible to work. So you increase the legislation, the regulations, so ordinary people can't navigate. But some equity firm or some property management firm in Abu Dhabi or Brookfield, they got no problem. They can get lawyers.
Yeah, just everything's set up for the eradication of the middle class and the eradication of business owners. You look where I'm at, for instance, in Nova Scotia, there's a cap on apartment rents. Like the market is crazy. It's not sustainable. So the government steps in provincially and they put a cap on what they can charge. And then every year they're allowed to increase it 2% towards market rate. Now, what that does is that doesn't hurt big companies that are managing properties, large properties. What that does is it kills the small guy. What if you own, you inherited two buildings with like 3 units in each building, and this is your primary source of income and revenue. Now the government's going to come in. Your costs are still what they are relative to the poor economy, but the government's coming in and telling you that you can't sell your product or your service for market rate.
Yeah, but what you've correctly identified is the government controls three levers of power. They control the inflation through the interest rate. They control your overhead through the property tax, and they control their ability to give you salvation by putting a cap on the rent. Like they basically they've got you by the balls.
Oh, 100%. I can't, like, you either like that or you dislike it, but I don't know how you could disagree with it. Like, because there's no argument that could be made. So our producer, morning
Sure.
guys. Charles Manson was an op as well. Well, that's what Chaos was about. The dude, I can't remember the author's name, but it's well worth a read because it's in the 60s, and he tells the story of him writing this article in like the 80s and starting, and he wrote it, he got obsessed and went down like a 25-year rabbit hole writing this article, and it turned into a book. And it's well written. It touches upon a lot of this stuff. So I think I'd definitely give it a recommendation. So we have Clown World. Holy crap. The inspections is wildly invasive. Yeah, that seems to be the main topic of this show just by default at this point. But yeah, absolutely. It's outrageous and it's indicative of broader problems.
I think this is something specific to your province. That could never happen in BC. BC it goes the other way. Like you just can't do that.
Yeah. Yeah, and maybe this is unique to well, no, because I've spoken to people I work with, and they do that in their buildings too.
Man,
Maybe
like
they're not supposed to. Maybe like we agreed to it in the lease. I don't know. I thought it was
well,
like,
it must have been in your lease. And when I had a tenant, like a pipe bursts, and I can't even get into the apartment. Like the tenant wants me to fix the pipe, but she won't let me into the building. I'm like, make up your mind, woman.
yeah, we have a lot of those rules too. You have to give notice of like 48 hours before you can enter, unless otherwise specified. There's little things like this, but was like a contingency within, I guess, their lease for these buildings that they get in annually, once for a fire inspection and once for a general unit inspection. Twice a year they come in. And every time, probably because people are adversarial, I didn't want to see them today. I'm not a violent person, but some people aren't as composed as me. So they got this big dude. He's the muscle. And then they got this little woman bureaucrat with a clipboard. Like, what's that hole in the closet? That's what she said to me. So, well, actually, I was moving a bed frame in, and it punctured the closet door there a little bit. I did pay a security deposit.
Rookie mistake. You should have said that was there when I bought this place.
When they're in here, man, I'm like doing counting in my head because it infuriates me. I want to have a big argument and a debate. And looking back at how much interest there is in this topic, I thought it was going to be a distraction. I should have just brought them in. I should have stayed live, brought them in, stayed sitting right here and talked to them. Just to give you an idea, like, this is where we're going, guys. This is where we're going. And I'm paying an exorbitant rate for this.
Any more questions?
Yeah, sorry. Got a little passionate on that one. Side note, I suggest the show extends 90 minutes. I don't know if we got 90 minutes in us.
Oh, yeah, I can't do a 90-minute show every day.
No. That's about the extent of the questions. I will take a moment now. Again, this was a very informal show, probably the most informal I've ever done. But I will appeal to the people watching. If you guys can share it, it's the only reach we get. We're very deboosted in the algorithms. So
I can bring up a topic.
Absolutely.
Do you want to go the full 60 minutes, or do you want
to? We'll go 60, man, for sure.
China, they I'm going to be very careful. The government of China, so the Communist Party, they are a very dishonorable party, in my opinion, a dishonorable state. So with Iran, they advised Iran to take a course of action with the US that served their interests only. I contrast this with Russia, where their government, they strike me as the last honorable government. I'm talking about integrity. They want to help Iran simply because, in my opinion, the Russians are naive and they think that if they're good people, everybody else will be good people. So the Chinese people are smart, but I don't think you could trust them. I don't think Iran trusts them. And I don't think Russia trusts them.
Yeah, and this is a very good point that you bring up. Like we think just because that's the way the power, it's like this alliance, this BRICS alliance, is out of necessity. I believe it's a direct result of the Americans weaponizing the reserve currency, but we've seen this very precarious formation of this BRICS group, and I don't think any of these countries trust each other. And I agree with your assessment entirely. Russia, I wouldn't say Russia's being naive. No, I would have to. I would have to agree with that. I think Putin's been fairly consistently naive, thinking that they would be kind of worked into the whole Western ruling class in some way. They would be allowed to trade. And I've seen a lot of interviews with them going back to the Clinton administration, where Clinton had told him, yeah, we're gonna look into more integration of our economies, and and Putin was at that time was very naive. And then I think that's when he first realized it, because I heard later interviews where he referenced that Clinton meeting, and he said the president of the United States is a show for the people. There's the CIA and the intelligence agencies make all the decisions for America.
Yeah, it's hard to believe that a former KGB agent could be, and he was a Dresden station chief, I believe. And like, how could he be this naive? He listened to who was the German Chancellor, Merkel?
Mm-hmm.
What was her name?
Angela Merkel.
Angela Merkel. Yeah, she's the one that told him, we will come in and we'll broker a peace and whatever détente with vis-a-vis Ukraine, and he believed her. And then I think that was the one time where he conceded he shouldn't have believed her. That was just them buying up time until they could rearm Ukraine and do the Maidan coup. So he's been consistently naive, but he's managed to stay in power. I guess at the end of the day, the Russian people have more faith in the doves, the softer party, than they do in the hardliners. They don't want a all-out war with Europe.
Well, it's also very different, right? It's not like democracy is. It's more like autocratic. They still have them. Doesn't Putin win like 90% of the vote every time they have an election? I'm not super familiar on it, but I would say Putin stays in power relative to him being ruthless in some regard with it all. And I don't think it's the people that are going to push Putin out. I think it's the ambitious people underneath Putin that are going to potentially be the catalyst that kind of pushes him out of power.
Yeah, I mean, you could be right. Regarding the election integrity in Russia, I would defer to Andrei Milosh. His wife is Russian. He follows Russian politics. I'm just, from an outsider, I look at it and I say, you cannot criticize Putin and say that he's rigging elections when the United States itself went in and rigged elections for Boris Yeltsin. Like, you got to be consistent,
Oh my God, rigged elections are the way the world works. Look at Romania. Look at what's happened in the EU and different countries. Look at what they did to Marine Le Pen in France. Like, look at the last Canadian election. There were some sketchy things about that. Look at the way he's achieved his majority. That's why I'm using this term. It's mask soft tyranny now. And if the people don't react with some opposition, some organized opposition, we will lose, because they're not going to stop. They're not incentivized to stop. Why would they? Every time the Canadian government gets away with something, it further demoralizes the population, and it emboldens these corrupt politicians that are just essentially puppets of larger forces.
I've been observing the left, specifically far left in Canada, the leftists, and if you talk to them, they've fully been indoctrinated by the liberal media, the CBC, into believing that in these far right parties. And a lot of them I talk to, they say, like the AFD, they're taking over. These guys are Nazis. And when you trick people into believing that your enemy is a Nazi, it's a lot easier to justify rigging elections. With the AFD, They took away their gun rights. They were trying to deregister them as a political party through the Supreme Court. And I think the only reason they stopped is they were worried of the backlash from the public, because the party has so much support.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. It's a crazy time we're living through. And the AFD is in an even more unique position, being farther to the right, because it's in Germany, where, you know what I mean, there's a big history, and like they're like extra sensitive. The whole of the West is sensitive to the World War II narrative. That's our modern day ethos. That's like kind of what Daryl Cooper, Martyr Maid, says. It's like nowadays we're so secular, we've been led so far astray from God and that semblance of morality, that we gauge things through this new mythos. When kids are rebelling, instead of being demons or worshiping Satan, they'll become Nazis. You know what I mean? They'll embrace that. If you want to vilify someone, you don't call him Lucifer or Satan. You would call him Hitler. Everyone that comes up as a major enemy of the Western regime is referred to as Hitler. And everyone who doesn't want to fight them right away, who wants to have a discussion, is Chamberlain. That's the dynamic of geopolitics in the West with these neocons. You're appeasing. If you don't want to just take out anyone who doesn't agree with this American hegemon, then you're appeasing to the point of Chamberlain.
Yeah, they're simplifying it. They're dumbing it down to the point where they're missing the whole point of the context, I guess. The Germans, on the other hand, they feel this in a different way. I remember I had a German girlfriend in college, and we were watching Eurotrip, and there was a reference in there to how Germans are all Nazis, and she got visibly upset when that happened. And since World War II, they've just been beaten up, and they've been denied a culture, and they really don't like that, and they haven't forgotten that. And I think the AFD is sort of it's that pent up anger coupled with this immigration. I think it's spilling over.
There was millions of ethnic Germans murdered after that conflict, just civilians that had nothing to do with the politics and the broader power networks and all of that conflict. Rapes and murders in the millions by a lot of the Russian soldiers, and who probably felt vindicated. War is a really disgusting situation. It takes humans to the darkest possible places. But yeah, and they're extra sensitive to that, right? That's something that they've been inundated with more so than the rest of us, and we've all been inundated with that World War II mythos.
You know, the rape of Berlin is one of those. It might be the only one case in history where a nation wasn't allowed to grieve for what happened. Like even in Nanking, China has been allowed to grieve. They were seen as victims, but with the rape of Berlin, it's almost seen as, well, they deserved it. Nobody admits to it, but that's the sense.
Yeah, it's deplorable, right? Like you can't have that kind of malleable morality. Like you can't it's you have morality for every human being, or it's not real. You're just using it to justify or rationalize atrocities, right? Like and that's what you see, like with this outgroup bias. People can easily see their neighbors as member of an outgroup. And once you do that, you've othered them, and then you could dehumanize them, and you can rationalize atrocities. Human beings are very, very simple in that way. That's how it works. No one's like doing that and feeling good about it. They have to rationalize it. They understand the barbarity of it. Goes against their own internal moral compass that I feel we all have.
Yeah, you're right. And the question is, how do we remedy that? In my mind, this is a little bit abstract, but you have to take away power and vest it in property rights. So just don't centralize it in a position that if somebody gains control and says, oh, that's the outgroup, we're going to wield this power against them. That's the only thing I can think of.
Yeah, if there's one word, if we have hope moving forward as a species, not just the West, we need to embrace the concept of decentralization. We know of the power dynamics of centralization of power brings about. We have to decentralize, especially the banks. The banking reform is an absolute must. And just decentralization in general, bring it back down to the family, bring it back down to morality, bring it back to God. I don't think that secular modernity was some kind of natural evolution. Like we would just get to a point where we threw away the concept of God. I think we were subverted. I think we were intentionally led astray. And now I think there's a lot of people like, oh, why is Gen Z coming back to the church? Why is Gen Z embracing religion? Because secular modernity has some major holes philosophically, like moral relativism is not good. We've seen the detriments of it. So the younger people are more sensitive to this. They see a very mad, chaotic world. And when they look at it and they start to look into religion and Christianity specifically, they want that. It makes sense to them. So I think this will correct itself long term.
Yeah, and we're getting into a territory that's above my pay grade: the Renaissance versus the Enlightenment. That's we'll get Matthew Arrett on next time. He can talk to you.
Speaking of Matthew Arrett, you guys got to watch the episode that Peyman and Matt Arrett did yesterday on inlay terms. It was beautiful. It really was. A lot of different themes. It was tied well together. It was very informative. I definitely suggest you guys check that out.
Yeah, it's he obviously did most of all of the talking, but I reached out to him and I said, I got 4 questions because I've been following his work and there's certain areas that he's passionate about, and we went into detail and he did a good job. I mean, I'm more of an Aristotelian, but he made a good argument for Plato, and he said this is where you're wrong, Payman.
And just the way he lays it all out, man, the guy really is a wellspring of information. I know a lot of things. I can handle myself. I'm reasonably articulate, but his mind is different. He's like he could just access the details of everything, and it's something else to watch. I'm a big Matt Arrett fan. I'm a fan of his books as well. His wife too, Cynthia Chung. Like, could you imagine what their little conversations are like at home? Probably discussing the most intense intellectual things imaginable.
Have you seen his backdrop? It's like 50,000 books. He's got a whole library.
Yeah, indeed. But with that said, this was a very informal episode. Beyond all the distractions, it was a fun episode. I hope it was entertaining, mildly at least. But I had a good time. So do you have any parting words, Peyman?
I don't know. I mean, with this hantavirus thing, don't despair, but be on alert. So if get in people's faces. If somebody says, you're killing my grandma, don't bend over like last time. Just tell them, like, no, I'm not. We're not doing this again. Over my dead body, like, draw a line in the sand and say, you cross this line, I'm going to kill you. We're not going back to the insanity.
I agree. Definitely push back against that. So we do this every morning, Monday to Thursday, 9 a.m. Eastern, and we will be back tomorrow, and hopefully we will have a more formal episode. Until then, we'll see you next time. Cheers.